What do we got here, Miss Piggy? Whole trailer load of junk? Yeah. So we got a whole trailer load of old four-wheelers and recreational vehicles. So I ran out to Sauk City, Wisconsin last night. A guy on Marketplace had all these listed for sale. Pretty much from this guy forward, he wanted $1,000 for them. And I didn't really want to spend that. So instead, I offered to trade him my Yamaha Big Bear 350 that we got running in a previous episode. It's a really nice quad, ran and worked good, and the guy took it. So I said, sweet. So I drove the hour and a half out there yesterday and came back with all this. Let's dig in and see what we got. So the first machine up here is a little Suzuki LT 125. Was said to run not that long ago. The pull cord snapped. Cosmetically, it's in good shape, except for the sun fading back here, which is a real shame. Tires seem to all hold air. I have hope for this one. Hopefully it's not seized up. I didn't check. Since the pull cord was broken, we'll just have to put it in gear and bump it around and see, and then fix the pull cord. So pretty cool little quad. I would think this thing's mid-80s. Never had one of these or worked on one of these, but it's just a little 4-stroke. It should be really easy to get running as long as it is free and has spark. Coming down the back here, we have, I think, the coolest looking one. This is a Kawasaki Bayou 185. I've had a bunch of the 220 Bayous and really liked them. I think this thing's a little earlier version of that. I love the headlight. It makes it look like a diver. I don't know. Cosmetically, this one's in really good shape. A little bit of sun fading, but no cracked plastics or missing stuff. The seats, a beautiful fake leather in amazing shape. Maybe not amazing. Got some dry rot. Yeah, had really high hopes for this quad, but sadly, it is seized. So that sucks. I don't know if it's seized from sitting. I don't know if it blew up. We'll find out. I would love to keep this one because it is so cool looking, but I don't know. Let's move over to the Pooooolaris. So this thing is a Pooooolaris Indy Storm 800. And you know what that means. It's a triple. So these things have kind of gained some popularity just because people love getting them running and beating the crap out of them. An 800, that should be pretty quick. Check out the pipes on that thing. Yeah. I've never owned a snowmobile. I've never worked on a snowmobile. I've barely even ridden a snowmobile. This one does pull over. I don't know. I don't have any registration for it, which is a problem in Iowa. I think I could take it over to Wisconsin and register it without a title. I don't know. The guy said the belt was relatively new. Meh, I don't know. So, not quite sure what I'm going to do with the old Pooooolaris here. It is a decent enough machine, and being an 800 is pretty cool. If I was going to keep one, it wouldn't be a bad one to keep. But they just take up so much space. It's 9 feet long, like 3 feet wide. That takes up a huge chunk of your garage for something you get to use maybe 1 month a year, at best. So, no promises on how far I'll take it on this guy. I won't scrap it. I'll sell it to someone before I let that happen, but yeah, so that's the Pooooolaris here. This is my first snowmobile, so to get the absolute cream of the crop ditch banger is pretty cool. And just look how cool it is with all of its lightning bolts and finish line flags. And yeah, awesome. All right, let's go around the front here and check out this Yamaha. So this is a Big Bear Yamaha. This one's a little earlier than the one I traded, which I find kind of funny that I traded the guy this exact machine, just in running shape. Actually, this one's better because it's 4-wheel drive, but it is a little older. So I would assume this is a late 90s Big Bear. This one is a 350. I think it's the exact same engine, just with a shaft out the front, really. This one was said to have ran and worked to use it as his ice fishing machine up until 2022, and then it developed a spark issue, and he started digging into it and never figured it out. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not looking forward to working on that. I do not like dealing with wiring on four-wheelers and stuff, especially after someone else has already worked on it, but we'll give it a shot, that's for sure. I do have the seat. I just pulled it off because I didn't want it blowing off going down the road. Cosmetically, not bad. A little bit of melty going on there. And I saw a crack up here, but it has both racks and it has its front bumper, which the other Big Bear I had did not have this. So yeah, if we can get it running, it'll be a nice little quad. It's got decent tires on it, a little bit old, whatever. So that's the Yamaha. We'll see if we can figure out the wiring debacle there. All right, let's get into the last machine, and I would argue the best machine. So this is a 1986 Honda 4Trax 250. Now, I've never owned one of these. I think they've become desirable lately. Not too sure. But being two-wheel drive and in pretty nice shape, I think this is pretty equivalent to my Big Bear if I can get it running and working. The story on this one is it ran as of June. The original fuel tank is completely rotted out and junk. At least that's what the guy said. I'll look at it a little closer, but it did look pretty junky. So we had it hooked up on this ghetto tank here. It's said to have run, but we'll see. This will probably be the first one we work on. And hopefully, I mean, the guy seemed pretty realistic, so I don't think he would lie to me. But who knows what could have happened in 3 or 4 months that it's sat. So hopefully I can find a tank for this one. And yeah, it should be a pretty nice quad. It does have a winch. Kind of a junky brand, I think. The super, well, maybe not. It's a super winch. The winch definitely worked at one point for that. I would be willing to bet this was hooked up there and someone pressed the button and yeah. What else is there? I don't even know where the winch controller is. I guess that's this guy. We also have, these are pretty cool. I don't know how you get it off of there. That way? Yeah, this is the coolest part. So the headlight comes off and you can carry it around like a flashlight. That's epic. We'll put that back on later. Yeah, so hopefully this one just fires right up and goes. It does have new front tires this summer, and the rear tires are said to hold air, so pretty excited about this one. He originally wasn't trying to sell this one, but he threw it in when I was there, so I said, heck yeah, and that made it a way better deal for me, quite frankly. So that's all the units. Let's go ahead and start. I guess we'll start with the 4-track, like I said, pull this off and verify that it runs and rides, and then we'll move on to the ones that are going to give us a little bit more trouble. All right, well, we have signs of life. Hooked it up to the charger here. We got a neutral light. Let's see what the starter does. Oh, yeah. Doesn't sound that good, but it works. All right, sweet. Let's check and see if we have spark. There is fuel in the tank. I don't know how old that really is, though. All right, well, we do have a weak spark. I just checked it. You can't even see, so I'm not going to include the clip. But I did notice up here is a fuel shutoff, which I assumed there wasn't one on this janky tank setup, but I don't know if you can see, I just filled that filter. So now let's try cranking on it. I bet we have much better luck now. Nothing yet. I can smell fuel somewhere. going on in the airbox? Heck yeah, I'm not used to finding that on a quad that I buy. We actually have a decent looking air filter. Oh, no we don't. No we don't. Let's get that out of there. I just realized. All right, so I genuinely thought this is a brand new air filter. It's not. It's a really disgusting old filter wrapped with a mattress pillow top thing. And the end's all glued on. Oh, the previous owner, he must have been a little bit of a sketchy guy, and I like it. Well, that'll work for today, but we'll definitely replace on that in the future. Let's go ahead and feed it just a little bit of ether and see what happens. I would help if I actually had, Oh, right at the end there it tried. Sick. All right, so he's right. This one does run. Awesome, and it doesn't smoke or anything. Sweet, let's get it kind of buttoned back together and take her for a spin. Do a little brake check. We got some weak front brakes. We got good rear brakes, but the pedal sticks down, so you gotta pick it back up. Yep, it's got pretty good power too. The only thing I don't know is how to get it into reverse. I've ridden one of these before and I thought I remembered there was like a lever or something. I figured it out. You pop that guy down into there, then you click back. Woohoo! Sick. All right, that works. All right, so that's a wrap on the first guy. I think this is one of the better quads of the, if not the best quad of the deal. So I'm really happy it runs and rides. We need to order the fuel tank, which is about $70 for a aftermarket plastic one. I have all the cowling in here, so that'll look good. Order an air filter, an oil change, and a battery. I think in total, we should have less than 200 bucks in this thing and have a really nice quad at the end of it. So I am pumped on this one. So let's move on to one that hopefully also runs. All right, so our next victim here, the Big Bear. I don't know how to tell what year this thing is. I don't know where the tag is on these. I don't know if it's on the front or the back or the neck. I'll look that up and figure it out for you guys later. So it does look a lot better with the seat on it, although the seat's not great. It's such a shame this thing's so faded. The plastics are in really decent shape, and it was probably so cool, this blue color. The racks are on it, but sitting outside, it'll kill plastics. So I did hook power up to it. We don't have much of anything. The first problem we have is the original key's missing. Oh, I just destroyed that key. This key was for the Bayou, I think. Yeah, so the original key is missing. We have it to the on position now, but that's janky. I just hooked power to it off camera, and we had a taillight that works. The one thing I thought for sure wouldn't work because it's busted, that worked great. So it does have a little bit of signs of life, but nothing on the dashboard. no electric start came alive. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump the solenoid and see if it'll just crank over on its own. I did check the oil and we're good there, so let's try that. Okay, so the solenoid's kind of buried back here. There's no good way for you guys to see it. We're gonna reach our positive terminal in. Turn power on first. I don't like how that sounds. That sounds like that cylinder's really dry, or maybe that's just the starter. But I did not like that. Okay. Let's pull that plug and we'll put a little bit of oil, or maybe we'll dump a little two-stroke down there so hopefully it'll burn out later. That did not sound good. Hopefully that was not the cylinder. There. Alright, got a little bit down in there. This is 20-to-1 that I run in my Odyssey, so it's really oily and rich. But it's still fuel, so hopefully if this thing does run, it'll burn out of there instead of just smoking like crazy. And I think, I don't know if I want to spin it over with the plug out of it, because then we're just going to shoot all that right out. But then we could spin it over some with no restriction and without fouling this plug up. So let's do that. Did I get you guys? No, I didn't really get you guys. Good. All right, well, that makes me feel a little better. I don't think that's a cylinder issue. I think that is a starter making that noise. Hopefully the starter hangs in for long enough for us to get it going, though. So let's start diving into seeing if it has any sign of spark. All right, you guys are going to be my eyes, because I can't see from the other side when I hotwire it. And just let me know if it has spark. Well, that was to be expected. I guess first things first, let's just do a little looking around. We got a bunch of fuses hanging out in places fuses shouldn't be. And then dig into this ignition switch maybe, and see where that takes us. Well, things have progressed, to say the least. This thing was already pretty well disassembled, so I don't feel bad for doing this. We got the plastics off. It was like 8 bolts in the rear plus 2 to get the rack to flip back, and then the front really only had 2 that were holding it on. He had definitely torn this thing apart, and the more I look, the more I fear. We've got unhooked stuff. This is for the headlights at least. That's for the light bar. I don't know what this is. That's like a, I don't know if it's a fuse holder or what, or a yeah, I think it's a fuse holder. Looks like most of the main harness and stuff, well, is intact but janky. Like that's gonna need some investigation. Yeah. Oh, is that a little tiny frog? That's a little tiny frog. What's up, dude? You are tiny. Oh, that gives me more confidence. If he likes to hang around this joint. What else we got? We got a bunch of wiring back here and one unhooked spade connector. Don't know where that goes. That's a vent tube. Our coils up here. Shifter. That went somewhere. No longer does. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe that was for the reverse. That was the lockout, I bet. I don't know. I think it goes into reverse. Yeah, it seems like it goes into reverse. Back here, we got our solenoid. All this stuff looks pretty intact, but we do have some tape going on there. And our voltage regulator and other stuff. This looks pretty untouched back here. So I'm not the most amazing wiring person in any way, shape, or form. Ooh, that's unhooked. But I'm certainly not going to give up on this thing easily. I did look. I haven't found it. Oh, did I just find it? I did. What year are you? I thought that was the data plate, but that just calls out what oil it takes. I think these things were made from like 83 or 87 to 2003. Being that this one's blue. Oh, our little frog guy moved, so he is alive. That's good. Since this one's blue, I figured it was probably 80s. Or actually, originally I thought it was 90s, but yeah. I think this one's an early one. I still don't know where the data plate is, though, and I refuse to look it up. I'll just find it sooner or later. But I'm going to go ahead and just start digging around, poking around, seeing if there's a way I can hotwire this thing to bypass any safety sensors or neutral safety switches and things like that, and just see what we can figure out. And I will pick the camera back up when I have something to announce. I decided step one, we should head in and try and find a manual. We did. All 468 pages of it. This one was from Midwest Manuals, maybe if it loads. So gonna do a little bit digging, and hopefully that'll help us determine what some of these wires are. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. All right, we have our battery hooked up. We have the ignition switch pulled apart, and we are contributing to the problem finally. So I stripped back the two red and brown wire here. Now, if we go over to our schematic, that is the main switch, which is what we're dealing with. And red is power, and black and white seems to run this, or sorry, brown. Where are we? Brown should be running the CDI, or maybe it's black and white. Maybe I have it backwards. Let's try and hook up power to black and white. Brown does give us power to our start switch. So anyway, I need to do some more poking around, but we have a good sign. We now have a light on, the neutral light. And if you press the button just right, maybe, it's really finicky. Okay, well, it's camera shy. But we did have it cranking over off the switch, which is awesome. There we go. Yeah, that button's really finicky, and that's going to be annoying, but it does function. It does crank over, but we do not have spark yet. I'm going to dig into how I can get power to the CDI and the coil and see if we can't hotwire our way to victory. I don't know about you guys, but I tell you what, Yamaha in 1987 or whatever year this thing is, they knew how to make a manual. Most manuals I come across these days are junk and tell you not to drink gas and that your vehicle takes a 12-volt battery, and that's the extent of how technical they get. But Yamaha in 1987 made you a whole like flow diagram of how to check each individual component of the ignition system. What resistance you should be getting, what wires to check. The only thing that's a little bit of a pain is they don't talk too much about multimeter in the settings. They just want you to buy their multimeter, I guess, specifically for this, but it should all translate over. So I've already floated through a good chunk of this flow diagram. Started with all the simple stuff, and now we're on to checking the ohms of the pickup coil, which you unhook these red and brown wires and then ohm it out. I'm a little high at 375. It's supposed to be a range from 275 to 330. I don't know if that's close enough that we get the point or not, but we're gonna move on. All right, so for the last thing to check here is the ignition coil itself, and you need to do a primary and a secondary check. So for the primary, it looks like we need to ground to the body. So we'll ground to the mounting screw back here, and then we need to hook our positive up to the orange lead here. We should get 0.7 to 0.98. And we are getting 1.0 to 1.1. That's pretty close. Actually, now we have 0.9, so I'm gonna let that be. So our primary looks good. For our secondary, we need to hook, let's see here. Secondary negative needs to be to the ground, and the positive needs to go into the spark plug wire. maybe. And here we should get 5 to 6.7, and we are getting 9. Oh, now we're getting 10. Okay, well, sorry, that wasn't a great visual, but I figured you'd rather see the coil than the multimeter. All right, so it looks like about 60 bucks. I can get the stator, pickup coil, and ignition coil. The ignition coil is like $8, so I might as well get it, even though it seemed to check out. Yeah, so that is it for today on this guy. Let's go ahead and pick another unit. I think maybe we'll get that Suzuki down and pull the plug out of it and see what's going on, why it's seized up. Possibly some good news on the little Kawasaki. So we got it unloaded, and I popped the spark plug out. Looks pretty rich. So anyway, pulled the spark plug out, threw some oil down in it. It's free. Something's still going on. I don't have huge confidence, but got the electric start hooked up, or got a battery hooked up. Ooh, I hear all kinds of electronic noises. We got a button there. I don't know, that sounds funky. Yeah, not sure what's going on there. I guess let's see if we have compression. All right, so I'm just gonna hold my finger over the cylinder. It's got compression, it's spinning over. Heck yeah, I thought this thing was blown up. It might still be, I don't know. But it's doing stuff, heck yeah. Man, I should have checked the oil. I didn't earlier because I thought this thing was a goner. No, this is just a sight glass. All right, I'm going to check the oil and we'll go from there. We'll check some spark. All right, so I think this thing knew I needed a little pick-me-up because so far it's unfreed itself and it has spark. So that is really cool. So after we put all that oil in the cylinder, I did throw some gas down the cylinder to try and mix with the oil and burn out of there instead of just foul that plug back up. I also cleaned and burnt out the plug. So we're gonna go ahead and try and start it. And I think it may try and fire with that fuel in the cylinder like that. No dice, okay. Let's pull the air box and see what's going on. We should have done that earlier just to make sure it's not gonna suck up something and eat it. And I have a hunch we'll be cleaning the carburetor, but that's okay with me. Okay, no air box and it's full of acorns, nice. That's what engines crave. Okay, so no dice off of brake clean. And I decided to pull the plug. I cleaned it one more time and went ahead and grabbed the fuel tank off the 4Trax because this one has a tank in the back and a pump to pump it up here. And I recall the guy saying one of these four-wheelers needed a fuel pump, and I'm assuming he meant this one, which I think is the only one that would have a fuel pump because it's the only one that doesn't have the tank above the carb. So I hooked up that auxiliary tank, which is now pissing fuel, which is cool. Hopefully the carburetor fuel tank was empty, so I'm hoping the carburetor might have been empty and we might get away with not having to clean a carburetor, but it looks like the float just sunk, so I'm assuming that will come out of there, but we'll crank it over and see what happens anyway. Oh, you know what that sound is, I bet? An electric pump. Yeah, it's got an electric pump. That's what sounds electrical. Okay, cool. All right, so I did discover that it has an electric fuel pump. That's it right there, I think. No, that's a filter. It's somewhere over there. I could just hear it and felt it on the end of the line. So I decided to pull the rear fender off so we can access the tank to run all new lines and make getting the carburetor off a little easier. The choke is leaving us something to desire. It looks like it does work in their janky setup, but we can't remove it. So I have to clean the carburetor right here, which I don't like doing. I just feel like I do a much better job if I'm up on my table. But we can get it done anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this thing real quick. We'll open it up and see what's in there. All right, well, I really should have put on rubber gloves, but I didn't. Yeah, so it definitely had fuel sitting in it, so I don't feel bad about pulling the carburetor apart now, because it definitely needed it. Just a little bit of chunkies in the bottom. Not too bad, though. Looks like everything else is in pretty decent shape. Our float's not stuck, so that's good. There we go. Yep, float looks good. Our needle and seat looks pretty decent. Let's go ahead and find the right socket to pop our jets out. Our main jet and then the other one. No spring back there either. Okay. I'll run compressed air through it and some carb cleaner and a torch tip cleaner and see what we get. All right, well, we got our all back together. Everything cleaned up pretty well. Nothing too concerning. I would have loved to dip it and just clean up the whole outside, but with it stuck on here with the choke cable, we'll have to live with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it stabbed back in this thing and we'll see if it runs. All right, we got our carb back in place. I said I was gonna replace the fuel line. It looks like a real pain in the neck. Someone has adapted an electric fuel pump. I don't think this thing originally would have came with one. I think it originally would have had a pulse pump. I would have preferred to have a pulse pump because then you don't have to worry about a battery or an electric start system. In theory, it would work if your charging system's working and the carburetor stayed primed between starts, but we all know how the real world works. So hopefully for today it'll at least work, and I will go ahead and find one of those pulse pumps, and when I do, I will replace the fuel line then. But we got the tank filled a little bit, get the carb on, fuel line on, let's give it a shot. All right, we're getting fuel. I don't want to overheat that starter. It already sounds weak. We're getting fuel. I wonder if that spark plug is fouled again because of all that oil we put in the cylinder. That was probably unnecessary. So I'm going to pull that and check it out. All right, something weird's going on here. So I pulled the spark plug and cleaned it. I was going to bump it over while I had the plug out just to see what was going on, and now it seems like it's seized up. That is so weird. Seized up, what the heck? I hope and think it's just the starters acting up, but man, is that weird. All right, well, I had to do a little bit of pondering on it and decided to go ahead and pull the electric start out of it and pulled the pool cover off so we could see what the heck's going on here. So it still spins, but until you go this way, let's see here. And then we hit a hard spot. That's not good. That should mean we're probably at the top of the cylinder. Maybe we can look into the spark plug hole if I had a bore scope, but I do not. Yeah, that really sucks because we were really close to getting this thing running, I think. I mean, you can hear it hitting something. So I'm thinking about pulling those valve covers off and seeing what's going on with the valves. Maybe one's hung down or something. I don't know what's going on. So, just playing around with it, I got it to free itself up and get past that spot. So I hooked up the starter again. So that's weird, and that's not good that it randomly seized up like that. That is probably a good indication something is wrong internally. I don't have enough time for the desire to rip this thing down and look through every component in that engine and transmission. I know I probably should, but I don't. It's not worth it for me on this quad, so we're going to go ahead and see if we can get it running anyway, and just see what happens. Oh, you know, the freaking spark plug's out of it, you buffoon. Alright, now we got the spark plug back in it. Let's see if it'll go now. Thinking about it. Come on. Alright, I don't want to kill that starter. It is thinking about going though, so that's cool. Alright, we are pretty much in the dark now. I'm going to go ahead and give it some extra juice. See if we can spin it over a little faster, if that helps. Yeah, it runs. That's all I need. Sick. Let's see if we can get it to stay running now. Seems like it lost fuel or something. Alright, so that was like an hour ago, the last clip, where it ran. I have fought this thing for an hour. Just trying all sorts of different stuff. Choke configurations, throttle. Ran to O'Reilly's right before they ran, or before they closed. Bought a brand new plug. The last thing we have is some fresh carbon choke cleaner. But it seems like it's getting plenty of fuel. So I don't know what this thing's conniption is. I don't know if the fuel that I put in it is not good. But it's got air. It's got spark. It has plenty of air. It's good spark. It's got compression. What is your problem? So I was just cranking on it. We're going to let the starter cool off for a couple minutes, and then we're going to hit it with some carbon choke cleaner. I'm not a huge fan of using brake clean to try and start stuff like this. It just does not seem flammable enough most of the time. Maybe it's the brand of brake clean I use. I don't know. So we're going to go with the old reliable carbon choke cleaner. What the heck? All right. So, I don't even begin to understand why. Well, it ran again. So I had tried the actual carb cleaner, didn't work, and had tried hooking this fuel tank up to it in case our fuel pump wasn't providing proper fuel, or fuel that was in the tank, which we put in it, which was brand new, was no good. Nothing worked. I was letting the starter cool down, and I was just kind of screwing around and pull starting it because I was letting the starter cool off, and it fires right up. Why? The starter was starting it plenty fast. Why does it start with the pull starter? Oh, I have no words. I'm very tired, and I have no words. I'm going to open that valve and fix that kink, because I honestly didn't expect this thing to actually start. And let's see if we can get it to actually run for a longer time. Well, I think that is the end of the little bayou for now. Now, it definitely had more compression than that earlier today when I started working on this thing, and I don't understand where that compression went. This thing has been a bucket of joy. A lot of highs and lows. At first, I thought this thing was seized up and gave it no hope, and then all of a sudden it unseized itself, or I don't know what's going on with that. We had it cranking over, we had spark, we cleaned the carburetor, it seized up again. I got that fixed. We got it fired up for a second, ran. After like another hour and a half of fiddling, we got it again, as you guys saw, but only briefly for a minute. But overall, I mean, it was smoky. I don't know. I did put some oil down in the cylinder earlier this morning. So, I mean, wouldn't have surprised me if it smoked, even if it was a good running machine. And now all of a sudden, I have no compression. That makes me wonder if it's slap worn out and needs rings or a rebuild, or if we're having a valve issue because of the nature of how we have compression sometimes and we don't now all of a sudden. So I don't know. It's late. I've been working on junk ATVs all day and feeling a little burnt out. So we are going to go take a nap, aka go to sleep, and hit it in the morning with our little LT 125 up there, I think. Unless I come up with some magical plan in the middle of the night for this guy. Oh, the joys of buying junk. All right, it is not the next morning as I promised. It's actually 2 months later in the middle of the night. And I just got done editing everything you just saw and realized I needed to hop in here, make a couple notes, explain some things, and put an end to this video because we're getting close to an hour. So, you'll see the little Honda sitting here, nothing else. We didn't sell all the machines, just 2 of them. So I sold the Big Bear because it sat here for about a month or so. And I fiddled with that thing for probably 5 to 7 hours trying to get it to get spark. And never got it there. And it really bugs me I didn't finish it, but I had to cut it off. I have plenty of other things I'd rather work on. That machine, even if I got it to get spark, was really rough. Cosmetically, it would have needed a lot of other parts to properly run and be usable. And it was just an absolute time suck and not worth my effort. Probably better off as a parts machine or a major project for someone, and I have plenty of other major projects. So we let that one go. The Honda here did not end up being nearly as much of a sweetheart as I hoped. Sourcing a plastic tank was a real pain in the neck. It was easy to find. It was just the quality wasn't really there. Had some issues with that. And now this has a really funky issue I'd love your guys' help with. It only has spark as you let off the electric start. So you can crank, no spark. As soon as you let off the button and it kind of spins over the last few times, it's got spark and it'll fire up. I need to figure that out. I will have this thing in a future episode where I have film of putting the tank on and dealing with some of the issues this has. So expect to see a final video on that. Now the Pooooolaris, which was outside for a month or so, actually it was only outside for a couple weeks, I decided to cut that thing loose. The no registration, it had no spark, which meant I was probably looking at doing a stator on it. Not a lot of fun. Have to dump some money into something that I don't even know if I can register to ride in my state, and they take up so much space. I decided to cut that loose as well. So that's kind of buttons up these 3 machines. Now down in our storage area here, we've got the 2 other little guys. So the Bayou. What the heck? It goes from locked up to spinning over with compression to seized up to running to no compression, all over the course of like 3 hours. I don't understand why. Like I said, I really like this one. I think it's super cool. I'd love to keep it. Parts seem to be really hard to source for it. I suspect it needs a top end. I think we have something going on with the rings where they were seized to the cylinder wall. We got it broken free. The rings stayed out and we were able to make compression. And then near the end of the day, they pulled in. And that's why that second time we got it running, it was really smoky. And then they pulled in enough, seized in that way. And has no compression. That's my guess. I'd love to hear your guys' theories. I do have some more footage on this thing where I adjusted the valves to inspec. I watched the valves go up and down. Everything functions as it should be. There's no compression release on it as far as I could tell. So that's my running theory of what's wrong with that thing. If I can find a top end kit for it, I think I can find piston and rings, but I was not able to find a cylinder in case this one scored when I pull it apart. So I'm not too sure in the fate on this thing. It is on Marketplace right now. I don't know. No promises if you'll see another episode on that. I really do like it though. Then our little LT 125 you guys didn't get to see much of on this video. We are going to save that for a rainy day in the future. It fought me as well. I've got some footage on it. It's not quite running yet. That's for a rainy day in the future. But I apologize. I don't like showing things on this channel where I don't get them all running and working. At least little things like this where I should be able to get them running and moving quickly. I like to button up videos nice, neatly, with things running at the end of them. And this video is just not one of those. And I've got to make some decisions on what I put my time into. My poor ATEX has been around for like 3 years. Needs a full mechanical go through restorationist. I really want to get to this thing. We're coming to the end of the summer. I really want to do, we're in fall. It's November. Not even summer. But I want to do a hair scramble on my new big wheel. That needs a day's worth of work. I got a really cool plan for that mini bike. The mini Jeep needs a ton of work. I've got the Coot now. So I'm sorry. I'm not going to get all these machines running like I had hoped. I was hoping like a day I would have all of them going, but that's not the case. So some of them are gone. Some of them are running. Some of them we have some hope for the future. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It is kind of cool getting to see all these older machines like this and kind of dig into some of their funky issues like this guy. So I will catch you guys on the next one. Last note, sorry, I know I'm yapping along, but I did promise you guys a second video on the Coot. If you watched that last week, we had some issues when I went to go take it for a ride. You'll see that next weekend, I hope. Yeah, just nothing's been going to plan in the YouTube part of my life, I guess. So thank you guys for watching if you've made it all the way to this point, and I will see you on the next one.